yet?
Yeah. It
Yes.
says, it just shows recording.
Yeah, so the webinar has started now and it's recording so people can start joining in. But do you see at the bottom if it says share screen, question, answer, polls, chat?
Oh yeah, Q&A.
Yes, so at the Q&A, people can send in their questions and the chat box is just so they can communicate if you would like to communicate back with them through there. Question
So
answers,
then,
those they can send in throughout the whole event and you can begin taking the questions later on when you've wrapped up your whole event. People can send in all kinds of the questions related to anything you've discussed throughout.
Yeah, so if you make Gursharon the co-host, and then she can see the questions as they come in, because we want to encourage people to ask them as we go. So it's more of an organic conversation. We'll answer it then and there. If it's a good question, right? Because Gursharon can kind of vet out the questions and then she can direct the questions maybe towards one of us specifically as well. So
okay, that's great.
yeah.
And would she like to do
She's
so
right there.
if she doesn't mind handing it back to me at the end and I can end the event. Just thank everyone for joining and I have the end button option over here and I can just end the meeting once we're finished up.
Okay, yeah,
Or
so
she
after
can
the
end it on
conclusion,
her
we'll just
end.
end.
It's depends on her.
Okay. Cool.
Just because I'm not sure if she's here right now, so I don't want to confuse her.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. So at the end, if you don't mind handing it over to me and I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great, perfect.
Sorry, and I forget your name.
Oh, sorry, my name's Harneet.
Harneet, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So we have some attendees in the room now. Are they able to see us?
Yes, they should be able to see.
Great.
And hopefully they can all hear us as well.
Yeah, I think the Indi's on the attendees. She's supposed to be on the panel.
We just wait 5 minutes past 7 just to let people roll on in, join in, and then we can begin.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just who are we missing from the panel? Raji is not here. 1, 2. Okay, yeah, Raji's coming in now, and it's just Indi, I think, right?
Simran.
Yeah.
So it shows Indi on the attendees. Let me message her. Why is everyone so serious?
The awkward silence.
Right? Like, I want to keep it light. It's already right now.
We got
Yeah, so it's just
Dad joke.
dad joke. Yeah, Avi, do you have any dad jokes?
Honestly, one of my clients told me a really good one the other day, but I'm forgetting it. Let me see if it comes back to me. Had something to do with a ladder. No, it's blank.
Too much pressure.
Too much pressure. Way too much pressure.
So
Or I'm gonna Google one.
you're gonna Google one.
What did an exponent say to the other exponent?
I don't know about that. That's a teacher joke. What did the?
Yeah, that's a teacher joke. 2 squared.
Oh,
that's somewhere.
Oh my god.
what does a? Oh no.
Oh no.
We're just
Come
waiting
on,
for
Indi.
Indi. That's it. I think Amar sent her
Yeah.
the link.
Send a link. Hopefully. 1, 2, 3. Bear with us, guys.
Getting there.
So close, but so far. Maybe I'm gonna mute myself and give her a call.
Well, how's everyone else?
Good.
How's BC?
BC is good. Sunny. We had a lot of sun over the weekend, and like our beaches were just packed, and it was crazy. Like it was like it was summer, and apparently there was video surfacing of like a beach party that went down on Friday. So people are pretty outraged about that because our cases are going through the roof, and there's a lot of people on ventilators, and the hospitals are getting pretty crammed as well. But it seems like civil disobedience going on. A lot of the people just aren't following the rules anymore. They're supposed to make an announcement today.
And
Are you guys in
people
a
are-
lockdown, Jess?
Yeah, no, not really. There's just like certain restrictions. So there's no indoor dining, but you can eat on a patio, and then you have to stay within your social 6, I think. And then outdoor gatherings of 10 are allowed, I believe. But it has to be the same bubble of people or something. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here. Oh, and if more than 2 people get COVID in a workplace, the workplace shuts down for 10 days now.
Wish I lived in BC.
They should be doing that, but they're not.
Yeah.
You guys should all just
All
move
right,
here.
so I think
That's
we're
good.
gonna give it
It's a
about
great
a
place.
more. We'll get started.
Yeah.
All right, I feel like there's a bit of a lag. Are you guys, am I lagging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
A
am.
little
Okay,
bit.
give me a second.
I think a few people are. I think Avi froze for a bit, Jas froze for a bit, you're lagging. Gursharon, Bipan's freezing a little bit. Oh, now Amar froze. Well, hopefully this has nothing to do with like the Rogers outage.
Okay, guys, is that better?
Slightly, yeah. I think it's good for the most part.
Okay, perfect. All right, guys.
Let's yeah, Gursharon, you're good to go. I'm helping Indi on the side to get in. She gets in, she does. She doesn't, it's all good.
Okay, perfect. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are very excited to speak to you today about health and fitness and all the good things that come with that. So the coaches that you see on the screen right now, we're all part of a group called Strength and Seva, and that's a fairly new initiative that we started in light of the farmers' protests. And you guys can certainly go on our page and learn more about what we're trying to do. But essentially, we're trying to bring together the Sikh, the South Asian community, and provide an access point to health and fitness by providing free workouts for the entire community. So we've been doing online classes via Zoom, on Instagram Live, and on Facebook for anybody who wants to join in, especially during these times. It's kind of difficult for everyone to stay active. So that's our initiative that we started. So today's panel consists of some very brilliant coaches. And what I'll do is I'll allow everyone to introduce themselves very briefly. My name is Gursharon, and I am a lawyer by day, but I am a coach by night. I do a lot of jujitsu and training. That's my passion project. And I'm very, very thankful and grateful to be a part of this group. I'll hand it over next to Avi if he wants to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Wish I could see all your faces in real life, but we're going to have to settle for this. If I lag, I apologize. I am a personal trainer based out of Brampton. I've been doing personal training for over 8 years now, 8-ish. And keeping a rugby player, just always been passionate about health and giving back to the community, and just been doing my thing here for the last few years. I've done some previous events with Sikh Heritage Month, so you guys might remember me, but I do change my hairdo every year, so come back a little different. I'll give it to Dilpreet next.
Hi everyone, Sat Sri Akal. I'm Dilpreet. I live in Toronto, originally from Winnipeg though, will always be a Winnipeg girl. I'm an online fitness coach and I work with clients from around the world. I would say most of my clients are in the South Asian community, so it's really awesome. And I focus on a lot of strength training, and sustainable lifestyle approach with clients. And the most important thing is to enjoy your fitness journey, and that's what I do. And I'll pass it off to Bipan.
Hey everyone, so I'm Bipan. I am a level 1 CrossFit coach. So I kind of have always been athletic and just found my way into CrossFit. And right now I'm just training at home like everyone else. So it's kind of interesting to see what kind of workouts we come up with. And I'm really, really grateful that I get to be a part of this amazing group. I guess I'll pass it off to Jas.
My name is Jas Johal. I'm a kinesiologist and entrepreneur. I've been in the industry for 10 years now. I'm a co-founder of a company called Fit Nation that I started with one of my best friends, Ben Guman. And we've been working predominantly in the South Asian community, first just personal training, and then we got into kinesiology work, so active rehab, ICBC, which would be motor vehicle accident patients. And now we work with athletes, seniors, a whole wide array of individuals. And we have a facility in Surrey, BC. I'll pass it off to Amar.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We're really excited to be on this panel and to talk to you guys. My name is Amar Vaid, and I am in Ottawa, and I'm a certified personal trainer and huge mental health advocate. And like many of the trainers here, I work mainly with the South Asian community, BPOC women specifically. And I've been doing it for about 5-6 years. And I'm excited that you guys are joining us tonight. It's going to be a really interesting conversation filled with a lot of info. I will pass it off to Simran.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simran Mann. I'm an occupational therapist. I've worked kind of across the scope of practice through mental health, geriatrics, and now more in acute medicine. A goal of mine throughout this time has been to be able to kind of break down cultural barriers, to improve access to healthcare services, and to promote health and wellness regardless of language and culture. I'll pass it on to, is there anybody
Raji.
left? I can't see on my screen.
Oh, hi guys.
I'll pass it on to Raji.
There we go.
Hi guys, hope everybody's been well. My name is Raji. I've been a fitness coach for about 4 to 5 years, also in the Brampton and Mississauga area. I also advocate to a lot of women in the South Asian community to be able to find a balance between mental and fitness and live a healthy, sustainable lifestyle.
Amazing. Thank you guys for those introductions. And everyone's going to be speaking tonight. So there's a lot of knowledge in this group, and you guys are in for a very good panel. So before we begin, I wanted to let you guys know that we will be having Q&A at the end of the panel, but you can also, that's going to allow us to do is as we're speaking, if a question comes to your mind, please just throw it in the Q&A box. And what we'll do is if it's a topic that's relevant to what we're discussing, we'll try to answer it in real time. So that way we don't run out of time by the end of the panel, because what tends to happen with these sorts of things is the Q&A is 10 minutes at the end and people don't get all of their questions answered, okay? So don't be shy, please continue to send your questions through the Q&A box, okay? So let's begin. So guys, we're gonna be covering a couple of different topics. We're gonna start with fitness, we're gonna go into nutrition, and then we're gonna delve into the mental health aspect health and fitness. Okay, so before we go there, it's important to view what we're going to talk about with the lens of Sikhi, right? Because it is Sikh Heritage Month, so we want to view and talk about these topics through that lens. And why is that important? Because it's who we are, right? We're all here. Some of us have joined in, some of our non-Sikh sisters and brothers. Thank you for being here today and joining us. But a lot of us do come from a Sikh Punjabi background, right? And so it's very important to remember where we came from and why fitness and health is so important to our community. So these days, what do we usually see with our elderly people? That jolly old grandpa or baba, you know, with the big belly, you know, and that's not where we came from. The physical component of our health is seminal and very integral to Sikhi, right? Our gurus were martial artists, they were warriors, and they were very cognizant of the fact that unless you have a strong body, your mind will not be as strong, right? So if you think of things that we value, right, we don't keep them in fragile vessels, right? If we have something valuable, we're going to put it in a strong safe. It's going to have a lock on it. It's going to be made out of whatever it's made out of, titanium, whatever the case may be, right? And our minds and our spirits have to be contained within a strong vessel. I'm sure all of you know, if you eat shitty food, you know, you haven't exercised for a week, it can be draining mentally and spiritually, right? So if you don't keep up with your health and fitness, it's going to not allow you to reach your goals spiritually either, right? And Sikhi is all about spiritual enlightenment, but in order to achieve spiritual enlightenment, there has to be a physical component to that, right? So Guru Angad Dev Ji was one of our first gurus who really honed in on this concept that if you want to achieve anything in this world, you have to be not only strong physically, but also mentally. The mind, the body, the spirit, it's all intertwined, right? Our mental health is linked to our physical health, and our physical health is linked to our mental health. And when you think about our past and you think about our history, the Sikhs were defenders of the meek, right? We were there to ensure that there was justice in the world. We fought in battles when there was injustice. We fought against wrongdoing, and we went into battle. And the Sikhs of the past, the Puratan Singhs, the Puratan Singhania, the Puratan Sikhs, they were not weak, right? They were strong individuals. They woke up in the morning, they meditated very early, and then they practiced their vidya, their martial arts, and they did physical labor, right? Because that's how it was back in the day. They were robust human beings. And as life has become more comfortable, our minds have become weaker, our bodies have become weaker, right? And that's a big problem for the South Asian community because we are more susceptible to a lot of diseases, right? Cardiovascular disease in particular. And Guru Har Gobind Singh Ji was the one who introduced the two swords, the Miri Piri, right? So Miri being the political or worldly power, so the physical, and then Piri being the spiritual power. And the concept of Saint Soldier, Sant Sipahi, that's exactly what that is, right? So it's through that lens that I want you guys to think about the concepts that we're going to discuss today, because it is very integral to who we are. And with the farmers' protests and everything, it kind of brings that to light, right? You see our elderly people out there on the streets, and they're robust human beings, right? They're on the streets. They've been camping out for months and months and months. And that does take a lot of physical strength, right? I don't think that I could do that, to be quite honest, in the cold winter of India for months and months, just camping out on the hard concrete floor, on the dirt floor. So it's through that lens today that I hope that we can, engage in some conversation today. And remember that martial arts and Shastra Vidya was a very integral component of our history and our past, and discipline as well. So let's begin. Let's get into this. And we're going to start with fitness, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our a discussion about cardiovascular health, because I think that's very, very important to the South Asian community, because a lot of our family members, I'm sure there's not a single person in this chat today that hasn't had a family member that has suffered from some sort of cardiovascular issues, okay? So I'm going to turn it over to, give me a second here, Simran. Okay, Simran's going to start off the discussion about cardiovascular health.
Sure. Gursharon, you raised a lot of valid points regarding Sikhism and how it promotes health through mind, body, and spirit. And just like you said, respecting your body and maintaining a healthy body is very important. As a therapist working in the hospital, I see an alarming influx of the Punjabi population coming in with heart disease. Even statistics are showing, like the Canadian Heart and Stroke Foundation is telling us that South Asians are at a far more greater risk for heart disease and stroke. We have a higher rate of diabetes, a higher rate of hypertension. Studies have even shown that South Asians are starting to get cardiovascular disease at a much earlier age. When we have things like heart attacks, we're actually having much larger infarcts or much more damage done to the heart. But then it comes down to the question of, why are we at risk? Why is it that we are at a higher risk for heart disease? We do notice in our population that there's an increase in abdominal obesity. We have decreased energy expenditure, and there's increased caloric consumption, which we will get further into through our discussion. And then more so, like going back to our parents, our grandparents, it becomes even more evident with urbanization. So the idea that our parents and grandparents, most of them, they came from India. The lifestyle there was very different, right? It was rural, just small things like walking longer distances to get from one place to another. Now we're driving, right? What we're eating, we used to eat our homegrown plants and vegetables. Now sometimes we're eating out more often. And just the general lifestyle, right? They were participating in farming. Farming is a very, it's an activity, it's very physical. And now sometimes what we're doing is desk work or even factory work, where it's very linear and it's the same repetitive movement. And even when we talk about from more of like a mental health perspective, just the lifestyle before, you were living in larger families, maybe you had more of a support group with the whole farming industry. But now when we're moving down from that rural setting to urbanization, we're seeing a lot of impacts on our mental health, our physical health. And that's kind of showing up, I think, in our cardiovascular health as well. So given all of this, it makes it very evident that changes in our lifestyle can be better controlled. This just solidifies the idea that if we have more control over our lifestyle, we could actually decrease our risk for heart disease. And that's when I turn to kind of our other team members as well, who can speak more on personal training, exercises, and how to implement some of those activities to decrease that risk.
Great, thank you, Simran. So I'm gonna hand it over to Jas, who's going to talk about currently the issues we're facing with sedentary lifestyles and what we can do to overcome the sedentary issues that we're facing.
Simran, those are some great points that were made there. So with the sedentary lifestyle, just 1 second here. My bad. So just like what was mentioned before with the urbanization, that point is extremely valid here. A lot of the patients and clients that I've worked with, simple things that I've told them was, back in the day when you had to go take lunch to the men that were working in the fields, it required about a 2-3 kilometer walk. And you did that with weight, which was the food. And then once that was done, you came back. So we were taking a lot more steps throughout the day, whereas now that's not the case. And a lot of stuff that I've noticed is, even with our families, we've created an environment where we treat our bujurg as they are very fragile. And we don't allow them to move and do these things. And we kind of do a lot of these things for them. And we say, Koina biji tusi bajo. Whereas a generation ago, that wasn't the case. They were moving around a lot. So in terms of this sedentary lifestyle, I feel like not only is it the jobs that we have, but it's also social things that we're doing, such as that. And as a result, with this sedentary lifestyle, what we're noticing with the women is that the bone mineral density is starting to go down. And when individuals in their old age are having, let's say, falls, there's a higher incidence of hip fractures and so forth. So in order to avoid that, we need to enforce weight-bearing exercise, resistance exercise, and strength training exercises. However, we don't really tend to see that with a lot of the individuals in our community, especially with the elderly population, which can go back to gender roles, etc. However, it's time that we look at the statistics that are being given to us and make some drastic changes and start challenging some of these things, such as the status quo. And we start filling up our gyms with, you know, a lot of the women in our society that require some of these interventions. I'll pass it back to you, G.
Thanks. So yeah, so Jas, in your practice, do you deal with a lot of, let's just say in your practice, how many days a week would you recommend someone engage in strength training?
Yeah, great question. So the recommendations I give is for aerobic exercise, we should try to hit 150 minutes for the week. So you can spread that out however you like. And then on top of that, we want to make sure that we're doing at least 2 strength training sessions a week. So it's any sort of strength or resistance training. And I generally recommend anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes for my patients. Now, if it's been a little while and they've been doing it for some time, then we can extend it from 60 to 90 minutes on the strength sessions. And the aerobic sessions would stay at 150 minutes. However, I've noticed that I gave that prescription to my mother, and she is now easily topping over 300 minutes in aerobic exercise, which is done with a stationary bike, walking on a track. And then her strength training is like TheraBand exercises and core exercises, which are done at home.
Amazing. And
Just
so we're clear. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to
Elizabeth?
clarify on the total minutes of, yeah, it's all good. I was just going to ask, just to clarify on the total minutes, how many would you recommend for somebody who's a beginner per day? Sometimes when you think about it per week, it might get a little confusing. So let's look at it daily.
Yeah, anywhere for like up to 30 minutes, I would say, because if they're doing up to 30 minutes and it goes about 5 days throughout the week, that's about 150 minutes right there. And then taking 2 days off. So that's always like, I think a half hour, 30 minutes is a good recommendation.
I would say that you also want to think about like small habits that you could change potentially, like throughout the day. Maybe you walk somewhere instead of driving somewhere, because like you want to build in those healthier habits, right? So we're so reliant on our cars and driving everywhere or taking an elevator. So getting up and moving around like consistently throughout the day is a good habit to build in, and that's a good starting point.
And then my next question for you, just to build off that, like, okay, say somebody is starting to become active now, right? And they're doing 150 minutes every week for 2 weeks. At what point would you say, okay, increase the total minutes of exercise, and how many minutes should you be increasing by?
Generally, what I follow is I would keep them at 150 minutes for about 4 weeks or so, which is about a month. And then I would go up by about 10%. So I would add about, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes for the next month. And that, so then they would be at 170 or 180. However, a lot of this really depends on the individual. So giving these rubric sorts of things, 10% is usually good to follow per month, and then holding that level for the entire month, and then kind of gauging it from there. Age also matters, and what the goal is, like what we're trying to accomplish.
And just for our participants here, because I know we're using some words that some people might not understand. So we have aerobic training, and then we have strength training. Can you tell us what the difference between those two sorts of training are? I know you've touched on it a little bit, but just to be more clear for some of our participants.
So yeah, there's metabolic differences, obviously, in the way that we provide energy to our body when we're doing those different forms of exercise. But to keep it super simple, when we think aerobic exercise, we think running, walking, jogging, swimming, cycling. Usually it's done over a long duration of like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And we're looking to keep our heart rate somewhere between under 80% of our max heart rate. So max heart rate would be like the maximum we can reach. We would want to be at about 80% or less. So for myself, that's about 150 BPM, 150 beats per minute. I don't want to complicate it too much, but just think walking, jogging, swimming, cycling, that's aerobic. And strength training would be using kettlebells, barbells, anything where we're looking to improve the quality or the strength or the endurance of the muscles. So usually with my patients, they're thinking functional movements that are pertinent to everyday living. So squatting, lunging, hip hinging, that kind of stuff, and using some form of weight. So you don't have to, a lot of people, when they think strength training, like I'll have to use barbells and heavy weights, that's not the case. You can use resistance bands, you can use kettlebells, light bells, anything, any form of resistance.
Backpack with some weight in it. You can perform all the same movements in the fancy gyms with a backpack with some weight. And just to branch off what you were saying in terms of strength training, right? Like we know we got to do aerobic, so walking, cardio, that kind of exercise for our hearts. But the reason that we're doing strength training is because as humans, we actually lose muscle mass as we age, right? And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the statistic is around 2% muscle mass loss per year, every year after the age of 30, if you are physically inactive. So if you're, quarantined and you're sitting at home for the last year doing nothing, this is a sign.
Yeah, we lose almost half of our muscle fibers between the ages of 50 to 82, and all this is avoidable. So they call it sarcopenia.
So it doesn't mean that you're just deleting muscle, but you can add a reservoir of muscle. So if you start at 120% and you're going down a little bit per year, you're still going to be at 100% when you're 60, 70. So you have more ability. That's where strength comes from. Like if you're too weak and you can't even put your arm up to reach something and bring it down, that's a problem, right? So these are the reasons we train, and the reasons, at least I preach training, is the long run, right? Stop thinking about, how you want to look in 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and
how
I
you want to
recently
feel, for the rest of your life.
Article too, Avi, and it had mentioned it was a research paper, and it starting in your early 40s is when you really start losing that muscle mass, and there's ways to kind of reverse that is by lifting weights and doing strength training and things like that. You can reverse it just a little bit as you get older. And for me, physical training also goes with mental training, and strength training helps with with your sharpness, with your mental sharpness, and with your mental health as well. So I remember reading this research paper, and it was something ridiculous in America where it was like 20 less than 20% of older, alarming, because I see it in the South Asian community and in our parents and our aunties and uncles and everyone. So educating our community is very tough, because we're not, look at the screen right now, it's majority women, and I'm so proud to see that there's a lot of strong women on this screen. But this wasn't the case, 5-10 years ago. It is only now that women are supporting women, and there's more women trainers and more South Asian trainers, mental health advocates, professionals, and it just makes me really proud to see so many of these remarkable women on the screen right now.
And that's a great point, Amar, because that's a great segue into the next topic that we're going to discuss, and Dilpreet's going to take over from here, and that's the issue we have regarding gender roles in the South Asian community, in the Punjabi community, even the Sikh community. Even though Sikhi is certainly all about equality, but we see a huge disparity in the way women are treated when they train, when they want to do something physical or active or engage in sports. And that's a huge barrier for females, and ensuring that they're healthy and robust when they go into the later stages of their life. So Dilpreet, if you want to talk a little bit about that, maybe some of the issues that you've encountered as a trainer.
Yeah, so this is a huge topic. It's been something near and dear to my heart too, because personally, when I got into weight training, our community was saying so many things like, this is manly, you're not supposed to, we're not supposed to look like that. And even becoming an online fitness coach, people were like, that's not a real job, right? So I think over time, it's just the societal norms. Like, that's not what Sikhi is. That's not what Sikhi has taught us. Because when you look at the women warriors back in the day, they were strong. As you mentioned before, Gursharon, they were strong, fit. So I still see it now where women think that if they pick up weights, they're just going to become like, you know, manly and big and bulky and muscly, but that is not the case at all. You know, building muscle is so hard. I know everyone on here knows that. It's very hard to build muscle. You know, you have to have specific training and dieting, and it takes years for you to get to a certain level. Weight training goes beyond that. And especially for women, we all encourage it, not just for health purposes, but also for confidence. I think that's huge. And my mission in life is to really empower, you know, Punjabi women, South Asian women to be their own person, you know, and I truly believe that lifting weights, strength training helps you be that confident woman in life. And you're not just known as so-and-so's wife, so-and-so's mom. You're actually known as your identity, right? You're feeling confident. When you go out, you're walking alone, you're not scared. You can hold your own in this world. At home, when you're doing tasks, you know, you don't have to call like the husband or the dad to come help you pick something up, like groceries, for example, or just, you know, picking up furniture. We should be able to do these things on our own. And when it comes to, you know, genders, it's true. Like, you see mostly like the men focusing more on like the weights, and women are so scared to go to the gym because they just don't even know where to start. But it's important to realize that weight training is so important to build a strong foundation in life, whether, you know, it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. The health benefits are amazing. I know we've mentioned some already. To decrease the risks of those health conditions, weight training is very important. To preserve, you know, like the bone density, it's very, very important for your brain, for your posture. Like, so many of our mummy and bibi are always like, oh, you know, my back hurts, like your knees hurt. You have to really focus on strength training to decrease the risks of like living a painful life. Like, I don't think anyone wants to live in pain, but if you start, you know, weight training and strength training, that's going to help a lot. It's going to save the muscle, and it's for everybody, right? Men, women, even kids. You know, there's lots of studies where kids are like lifting weights as well, and it's really good for them. And then our elderly as well, you know, as Jas mentioned before, like, we stopped our like grandparents from doing anything because we want to like do Seva, we want to help them, and we freak out because we think that they're fragile. But if you start lifting like weights at any point, right, you're going to increase the quality of your life from what it was like just like a month ago. So I know I'm going off, like, there's so much to talk about this. I get really passionate, and I know all of us get super passionate, but I encourage like everyone that's in this group that's listening, if you have moms and aunts and sisters and you yourself, we highly encourage you to strength train, because this is going to help you in the long run for your health, your life. It's not just about the muscle. Like, again, that's totally like different when it comes to like training. If you want to live a healthy, energetic life where you're able to go for walks, hiking, have kids, you know, have a healthy pregnancy, be a healthy parent, live long for your kids, you know, or like just live long in general. Please. Yeah, be able to pick up your grandkids.
Yeah.
I think a big one is mothers too. Yeah. Like what you mentioned, mothers, and I think like through my practice, what a lot of actually BPOP women have confided in me for is that, you know, postpartum depression, it's still a stigma within the community, especially in our community. When, you know, before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and especially after pregnancy, a lot of women that I work with feel like they don't have the resources in order to, you know, to work through their postpartum depression. And I think in our community, as I mentioned, it's not talked about enough, but the gym has been a great outlet and a great resource for new mothers, and also to build back their core strength, right? Like women's bodies do remarkable things during and after pregnancy. And so what I've noticed with a lot of my clients is the gym has been such a great resource for building strength back up, building their core back up, obviously after having a child, and mentally. Again, I tie that physical and mental so closely, because without one, the other doesn't exist. Without mental, physical. Without physical, there's no mental. So it's really, for mothers, I'm not a mother myself, but I have so much respect for women that have had children, because
and even
it's a battle.
And even as like, I'm sure we've heard this so much when it comes from our moms and like our auntie and bipia, like like I want to get rid of my stomach, right? And they automatically think they have to do detox teas and crazy diets and eat salads and do all the cardio. But if you start lifting weights and strength train, that's going to help way more than just doing the cardio, right? That's going to help burn the fat and then also build the muscle and build the strength. So I know we can go on for so long, but I'm going to pass it back to Gursharon for this.
I really liked what you said about everything, really, because I think I relate to everything you said as a woman who loves being physical. And I think every one of our female trainers in this panel today can relate to the confidence that you get from being strong, from just being strong. You know, you can walk down the street, like Dilpreet said, and feel confident in yourself, you know? I think that we're so disengaged from our bodies. We have such a limited connection to our physical bodies. We don't even know how to move our bodies, you know? And I think females, especially so, don't know how to move their bodies because they've never been told it's okay to be physical and it's okay to move your body and it's okay to be in a physical space, that you physically can be in a physical space, you know? And I think that's a stigma and something that we need to change in our community. That only starts with more females going out there, finding female role models, such as the ones in this group, and asking them for help, you know, being that person at the gym who's not afraid to go into the weight room and not simply doing cardio. And cardio is very important. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's hard for females to be in those physical spaces where there's weights, you know, and there's big men in there throwing around 100-pound dumbbells, you know, but it's important to be in that space. And the other thing as well is, as a martial artist, I know how important it is to know how to take care of yourself. I started as a teenager. I had very little confidence. I started doing Taekwondo. Then I started doing Gatka, and now I'm obsessed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a very intimate sport. You're in close proximity and contact with people, but it's important to know that is something that could happen, you know? So very good points. Thank you to all the females in this group.
I'm curious as to, actually, we took it from like a very, you know, a perspective from the ladies. I'm curious as to what Jas and Avi have to say about, you know, from the male perspective and how they feel about it.
Yeah, actually, I had a point to make when Dil was talking about the posture and how some aunties say like their back hurts and so forth. Like that's one of the things that I specialize is low back pain. And I've had many patients that were essentially like, you know, your typical BB. And after noticing their gait and stuff, I had like almost like a revelation of how our culture has impacted the health. It traditionally, back in the day, it was always common and it was expected that women would quote unquote nimipa around individuals and kind of keep their head down and kind of roll their shoulders in, and your upper back was rounded and you had to kind of disguise your face and so forth so nobody could see and all that kind of stuff. And I just feel like that really drove the health of a lot of the women into the ground, so to speak, and all these issues started to happen. And now we're trying to unlearn that, and a lot of the women on this panel are examples of that. You guys are doing the complete opposite of the nimipa. You are literally like, you know, throwing in their face and showing the strength that you have, which is the way that it should be. And one of the one story that I always tell individuals that really motivated me was when I worked with the 74-year-old Indian lady, essentially a grandmother, and I would call her Pua. And she would come in and she was just the most positive individual ever. And she came to lose weight because that's what she wanted to do, lose weight. And I got her barbell training, and it was a very, very slow process. I gave her a 15-pound bar one day, and I kind of started doing a hip hinge. Slowly that turned into a deadlift off of risers. The 15-pound bar now had 10 pounds. We got to 35. Eventually we made it to a 45-pound bar, and then the 10s came on there. So now we're at 65. I kept adding about 2.5 to 5 pounds a week, and she was with me for 6 months or so. And she ended off at 155 pounds, and with a flat back and everything, and the entire gym would stop and watch her. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh my goodness, like this lady, literally 74 years old. And and she would come sometimes when she wouldn't be working out. She'd come in her suit just to visit me, and I still talk to her to this day. And I'll call her every now and again, and I'll be like, could you want to just come back for free? You don't even have to pay. Just come back because you're so motivating. But those were signs that I found Waheguru did that on purpose, because he wanted me to see the possibilities of what can happen. And I came from a background where I was really close to my Nanaji, and in his family, my mother and my Masi were the first ones in their village to go to university. And he really challenged the status quo, and people were saying, why are your girls going to university? Like, that's not what women do. And he said, no, this is what they do. And I wanted to kind of really preserve his memory and let it last and so forth. So that's why with our business, about 80% of our clientele actually is Punjabi women. Yeah.
Oh my God, that just gave me goosebumps. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome, Jas. How did you get that auntie G in the gym though? I think like when I try to talk to my parents about physical health and get them moving and things like that, they're like, rande, but how did you get that auntie, or how do you get more elder people in the gym?
Right, that's a great question. She was actually the pua of one of our clients. And that client of ours was becoming a doctor, and I guess she had spoke to her Puaji about her health, and I think she was pre-diabetic, or there was a weight thing going on, and so it was like a doctor's order almost, where they were told, hey, you need to kind of start exercising. And she's like, well, I can never exercise. And then her niece felt comfortable with her coming to us because she knew us. And so she just brought her in, and we're like, okay, do you think this could work for you? Because even I had never done anything like that before. But through the experience, you definitely can do it.
Amazing. And that we have a panelist question that's kind of on topic here. So this is from Amar Singh, and he asks, what are informative strategies for development? Curious on thoughts on how to build or reinforce the why in training or coaching. I have noticed even among educated individuals who understand the consequences of a sedentary lifestyle, it's hardest to build that initial momentum for change. So what are some strategies overcoming that?
I'd like to take a stab at it, and then we can kind of chip away, but like reinforcing a why behind training is obviously an extremely important thing to do, and it's really hard to do when you're bombarded with social media and all this fake stuff we see. Like it's everywhere, right? You see all these guys and you want to get your goals like so quickly, so it can get overwhelming when you're first starting off, but really it's like I always try to make that anchoring focus about how do you want to feel when you're 80. What do you want to be able to achieve when you're in your later stages of life, right? Like for me, it's always been about, I want to hike, I want to be able to move with my grandkids. I want to be able to, travel the world with my wife. So those are anchoring pillars for me. I don't care how I look, because I know my body will change as a byproduct of like sound training, right? There's anyone can go and just like pick weights up and down and kind of like hope for the best. But when you fall in love with like the process of bettering yourself in all aspects, mental, physical, whatever it may be, you kind of like, you keep asking yourself those little questions, the why, and then you try to find the solutions and you try to implement them. And I guess I'm going off a little bit, if someone can help a little bit with the question, but really for me, it's just about getting people to stay curious about, why am I even here? Why am I doing this? So
go ahead. From like a hospital perspective, like what I see in the emergency department very often is like older ladies, so like BGs, and older men, like papajis, like they come in because they've had a fall, right? They were walking to the bathroom and they fell on the way from the bed to the bathroom. It's very common. It results in like hip fractures, like multiple fractures. But going back to the root of it is strength training, right? Working on your fitness, working on your core strength. I think that one of the promoters for working on fitness and health and strength training would be kind of looking at the other end of it. Like the worst case scenario would be having a fall at home, having that fracture. And for a lot of like BGs and papajis that I work with, some of their worst fear is to have to hold a walker, right? So kind of maybe like thinking about it from their perspective, I feel like I've been able to kind of refer a lot of my patients to these falls prevention programs, which focus on exactly what you guys are all talking about, right? Strength training, working on your core, working on your balance.
I love that you said that, because it's kind of like hard to think about progress when you're expecting it to happen like tomorrow, right? You want to think about like 20, 30 years down the line, like how do you want your life to look? And that's a big motivating factor for me, because I saw my grandmother, she was bedridden for the last like 5 years of her life, right? So like I saw that and I was like, well, I don't want that to be my life, because it wasn't easy. It was hard on everyone, including her. And I see my grandfather, I had to like literally carry him up the stairs because his knees hurt so much. And that's because it's a lifetime of just being inactive, right? So that's why I really push for being active myself. But then I do the same with my sister, and she just doesn't care. So like part of it is like you have to be motivated yourself, but you really need to think about asking that question of how do you want to live your life in 20, 30 years? Like, do you want to be able to be independent and do simple things like get up off the couch, walk up the stairs, things like that? That's what you want to train for. And that's what you're kind of, I guess that should be your
motivation. With that. I agree with that. And I think the other trainers will also agree that, like, I know when I was in my 20s, I was like, oh, I just want to look good, feel good. I want that, six pack. I want to lift weights. I want to be strong. But now that I'm exposed, I'm 30, and I see a lot of clients that now who were so focused on wanting to look good now just want to be able to like play with their nieces and nephews or play with their kids. So they just want to work on their mobility. And that's what training has come. And that's what I also like to train myself is I like to be very practical with training, where now you're doing movement for everyday life. So you're making it practical. It's not just about lifting, 300 pounds. It's about how am I going to take this exercise and apply it to my everyday movement. And I know Avi focuses a lot of that through his practice, and something that I'm taking in strongly into mine as well.
How Amar said that same thing before, like in the early 20s, I was like, yeah, like let's like get ripped, let's get those muscles and abs. But I think in the last like few years for myself, I feel like everyone's gonna have a little bit of a different like solid like why they're doing this. I've realized mental health for me is huge. I go through a lot of like waves of emotions, and in my family, like with grandparents, there's depression. So I don't want to end up, same thing, it goes into the older age too. I see them struggling so much with their mental health, and that freaks me out. And I'm like, I do not want to get to that point in my life ever. So that's why for me, exercise is so important, because it keeps my mental health grounded in my emotions. And I'm like on a mission myself where I'm like, I will not get to that point, where like they have to take the medications and go to the hospital and like the doctors. But it's so important to think beyond I just want to lose 10 pounds and look good. Well, you'll get to the 10 pounds and then you're like, okay, now what? Then you feel lost because you achieved it. And then you think, okay, I'm just going to eat chips now. And I lost 10 pounds,
I think what I'm doing is that, it has to become a part of your life. It has to be integral to your life. And that's where I think if we look at it from the Sikhi aspect, the discipline aspect comes into it, right? So what is it that you want to do with your life? What are you hoping to accomplish with your life? And how are you going to ensure that you live a strong, healthy life so that you can accomplish those things, right? I mean, looking good is great. I think that's your goal. I think it's a great goal to have, but you have to look at the broader picture, right? And the deeper why. And I think that if you look at it from a Sikhi aspect, like if you don't have the stamina to meditate, to do your your bot or to do your Simran, you know, and you don't have the physical capacity to do that. You can't sit down on the ground. You can't cross your legs. Your back is hurting. How are you gonna even reach your spiritual goals, right? So if
Right.
Sikhi is something that's integral to your life and is important to you, and having, again, a strong mind and having your mental health intact, you gotta look at your body as well, right? So I don't know if anyone has anything to add.
I'd like to add one little piece to this. I think so. The question was about momentum, right? And momentum, obviously, a lot of people lost their momentum. Maybe you had something going, you had a routine going, and then boom, pandemic hit, and now your routine's gone. So another important piece with this, with all this stuff that you guys are getting today, you're like, okay, like now I'm gonna run 500 minutes a week. That's not a great place to start if you were only walking 10 minutes a day right now, right? So it's very important to just progress slowly at your own pace and not be in a rush. Just turtle your way through it, you know, like slow, slow, slow. My strength workouts after, you know, I've dealt with a fair share of injuries, car accident, former rugby athlete, like I've dealt with a lot of things. So it's like you get hurt, and then how do I start back? I started with like 10, 15-minute kettlebell workouts. They were short, sweet, potent, and I had fun. And then maybe I shoot around a basketball for 10 minutes and skip rope for 5 minutes. That's my workout. I do that 4 to 5 times a week. I have a solid routine, and then I build on that maybe after a month or two, if I can do it regularly, right? If you don't do it regularly and it's working for you, at least try to just kind of, you know, build that habit. Sorry,
And
just
it's not even so much at once. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen with clients. When they first started like into the fitness journey, they just went so hard, and then their body was hurting so much that they just gave up because they were in so much pain. So just like Avi said, work your way into it slowly, because if you do that, you'll actually enjoy it. It will be sustainable, and you won't, you know, zap your body with like going into the gym for 2 hours a day for weeks and weeks in the beginning, because that's going to be exhausting.
I agree.
like training should be.
It should be fun.
I was
I
just
love that you
Yeah,
said that.
that's what I was gonna say. Like Avi always said that, like it should be fun, you know, make sure that you're enjoying it, make sure you're moving, because in that way you're going to want to come back and actually look forward to your workouts. A lot of the times clients are scared and they're not looking forward to it. They want to cancel, get out of it. They build an unhealthy relationship with it the same way that they do with food. So when you start building a healthy relationship with like, okay, I'm just going to, you know, start moving around, going for a 20-minute walk, 30-minute walk, or okay, now I'll add 10-minute abs after my cardio. When you slowly start doing it like that, it's more of a healthy relationship, and you realize it's a long-term sustainable thing. Like it's not for a month or 2 months. This is something that you should be doing for the rest of your life. So it's going to be a priority for you, right? So like you guys said, just take it easy, go at your own pace, but keep going, right? That's the main part.
And part of that is mindset too. So like changing your vocabulary. It's not like, oh, I have to go to the gym. No, you get to go to the gym, right? So you really want to build that into your language, because you are lucky. Like there's a lot of people that don't have that privilege to be able to go and lift weights or go for a run or go and shoot some hoops. So you have to change that vocabulary too. Like, oh, I get to go to the gym, or I get to go play basketball.
Awesome. So guys, great discussion on the fitness aspect. Q&As, guys, send them in. I know you guys are probably sitting there musing about things. Whatever comes to mind, just shoot it into the Q&A, okay? Because I know that there's there you go. Perfect. Good job.
There's
guys.
some good ones right there.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. I want to move on to the next topic because I think it's very important, and it ties into the next question that we have. So we've covered the fitness aspect of it. And now we're going to go into the nutrition aspect, right? So we started off our discussion talking about the diseases that plague the South Asian community and the Sikh community, right? Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, that sort of thing. And certainly doing aerobic exercise and anaerobic exercise, strength training is going to be extremely important in curbing and limiting your risk factor when it relates to those diseases. But a very huge component is nutrition, right? Nutrition is, You know how they say 90% is nutrition, 10% is what you do in the gym? That is very much true, okay? And our standard desi diet these days is not the best, okay? Let's be frank, let's be honest about it. Roti is great, parathe are great, gulab jamun are great, samosa are delicious, but this is not what we should be eating on a consistent basis, right? When we think of dal roti, right, we think of our traditional diet, right? What we used to consume, and I think Simran touched on this when we first started our discussion, what we used to eat was a very different type of food, okay? The wheat back in the day was very different. The wheat that we have now it's genetically modified to the max. It is not as nutritious, and it causes your insulin levels to skyrocket, okay? And insulin is the key here to these cardiovascular diseases, okay? When you're insulin resistant, it means that your insulin levels are going like this, crazy, crazy, crazy. And roti, parathe, samosa, gulab jamuna, all of those things, what's common to those things? They're
Fried.
They're fried, yeah, and they're processed carbohydrates. And what are carbohydrates at their core? When you break down carbohydrates, so in case you guys don't know, there's 3 types of macronutrients, okay? There's proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. The standard desi diet is predominantly processed carbs, okay? And processed carbs, when your body breaks them down, what do they turn into? Glucose. And what is glucose? Straight up sugar, okay? And sugar is what, this is what sugar does to your insulin levels, up and down, up and down, up and down. That's what it does to your blood sugar levels, okay? And that's what leads to cardiovascular disease. That's what puts stress on your arteries, on your heart, and it's a big no-no, okay? So we have to be very mindful of what we're putting into our bodies these days. And as Avi said, the fried foods is no good either. When you combine sugar and fat, you're literally asking for a heart attack, okay? Those 2 things should not be consumed in conjunction with each other. Yes, you need carbs. Yes, you need fat. And certainly you need protein. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. But what we need are healthy fats. And what we got to be mindful of if you're going to eat roti, right? And this is a huge topic on its own. When we're eating roti, what are we using to make the roti? Are we just using white flour, basic white flour? Or are we, using more healthier grains or healthier flours to make a roti? You can use spelt, you can use oat flour, flours and plants that are not going to cause your insulin levels to spike up and down. They're going to allow your blood sugar levels to remain a lot more stable, right? So these are things that we need to think about. And we may have some, younger people on the chat today. And I know like a lot of us were like, nah, I don't want roti. I'm just going to go out and grab some food. But what are you going out to get? If it's still processed carbs, you're not doing yourself any favors. If you're eating buns, burgers, that sort of thing, again, you're combining those highly fatty foods with sugar, and that's no good for you either. So it's very important that we're mindful of the types of carbs, and this is going to require research on your part, right? We have a panel here today. It's only 2 hours. We got a lot to cover, and we can't tell you everything. And that's where the accountability comes in. That's where you can ask us for help. Our Strength and Seva page is open, right? Ask people, okay, what type of carbs should we consume? Well, sweet potatoes, things that, vegetables, some fruit. I'm a little bit like, okay, fruit's great and everything, but it's also very sugary, right? So you wouldn't think that. You might not think, oh, fruit's great. Fruit is super healthy. Let me juice a bunch of fruit and, drink juice all day. Well, maybe not, maybe that's not the best idea either, because all you're consuming is sugar. You're just, in fact, removing all the fiber from the fruit and then just consuming straight syrup from the fruit, right? So these are all things that I find that in our community, we're not as mindful about, right? And these are things that you should definitely consider if you want to live a healthier lifestyle. And I know that it's very difficult for our Buzurgs, our parents, to change these habits because that's all they've known, right? Back home, that's what they consumed. But as we said, those were different types of wheat, you know, their energy expenditures were higher. They were working very hard on a daily basis. So having said that, I want to now get into some things we can do to be successful in the food choices that we make, okay? And what I want to do is start with fat loss fads. Let's get the myths out of the way because there is no easy solution to any of this, okay? It's going to take hard work, it's going to take consistency, and there is no diet pill out there that's going to fix everything. So I want to turn it over to Dilpreet, who's going to talk about some of the fat loss fads that are out there and why they don't work, okay?
So I'm sure one of us for sure has seen one of our family members, our auntie, our uncles doing like the soup diet or like the detox diet where they're just drinking like this big bowl of soup that they'll make. And they're like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight. So I'm going to, you know, eat this soup or drink this soup 3-4 times a day for like a week. And then sure, you'll see like this, you know, weight loss, but that's just water. Like they're literally losing like a ton of like water and probably muscle as well. And then they gain it all back because it's just not sustainable. And they're probably not consuming a lot of calories as well. And then of course, when it comes to supplements, you know, as Gursharon mentioned, like we think that there's like a fat burner, a magic pill, like let me take the fat burners because so-and-so said so on YouTube or, you know, on social media that if I take this, I'm going to lose all the fat. Also, I've heard, this is terrible, this lady, she was a Punjabi lady, started drinking apple cider vinegar because somebody told her that was going to help her lose weight, but she was drinking like cups in a day that she burned the inlining of her stomach. So I think it's just because so many of us want this quick solution, right? Like, I just want to find a quick solution and like lose weight and like lose fat, but that's not the case at all. You know, we can, as Gursharon mentioned, we can still eat like dal and sabji and like chole and beans and like, you know, vegetables, roti, of course, if you're choosing like a better flour. Portion control is going to be super important. And one tip that I'd love to give is, you know, you can share it with like anyone, is when you do the tadka, the amount of relatives that I've seen that just burn everything in the tadka, the oil is full on burning. If you're burning olive oil in a pan, it's just like, you know, like steaming and smoking. That's not good for you because you're creating like, you know, chemicals that can also lead to like health conditions. So when you do the tadka, use a healthier oil, right? That has like a higher smoking point. If you do use olive oil, just don't put it on like high heat and burn everything. Maybe saute the vegetables instead, like the onions, the piyaj, and the spices that you add, and using less salt. This is so important because when it comes to our community, salt and sugar are so high, and that's what leads to hypertension, you know, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and like diabetes. Decrease the salt. And I know Love's not here, but I think he shared the analogy that if you have 2 pieces of toast, that's your salt for the day. Like that's how much salt is in specific foods. So be very mindful of the salt. And I work with clients that love jaw. So, you know, they're like, I love my jaw. And I was like, okay, if you want to have jaw, let's work on cutting down the amount of sugar that you're putting in jaw, because milk already has sugar. And then on top of that, you'll see spoons of sugar just going into the jaw. And then they're drinking, you know, 3, 4, 5 cups a day. And the cups are like usually like this big too, right? Cutting down.
And then the bits in with the jaw too.
And there you go. Throw a laddu in, throw some cookies in, right? 2 of those would be like one of the main things that I like share with most of my like South Asian and like Punjabi clients is cut down the sugar and the salt, you know, and the oils, of course. When you are doing like the tadka, just minimize it, cut it down a bit. You can also add water That's one of my tricks, my personal tricks, is if I'm cooking, even if it's like, if I'm cooking meat or if I'm cooking anything stovetop, I'll add a little bit of oil and then I'll add a little bit of water so nothing burns. And that's been like a golden trick. And a lot of, clients are using that as well, because you just cut down like half the amount of like oil that you would be using because you add in a little bit of water. This topic can probably itself go on for so many hours. But for me, I would say the sugar, the salt, just start cutting it down. And if it's too hard for you to cut down right off the hop, that's okay. So with Jah, right? Let's say you add 3 spoons of sugar, cut that down to 2, then cut it down to 1.5, then cut it down to 1, and then try to just like cut that out or substitute it with maybe a little bit of like honey, if you'd like, or like a natural sweetener, not Splenda, because Splenda is terrible, but just make small changes so it's not drastic for you, and then that you're able to sustain it in the long run. But sugar, salt, those 2 is, let's try to cut those down, because that's going to help with your not only fat loss, but with like your health as well, because those 2 cause inflammation in the body, and that's where we start to see like all the health conditions coming up.
One recommendation that I have is with a lot of the clients that come to Fit Nation, we have a registered holistic nutritionist, and we're noticing that with lactose and milk, a lot of people can't even digest the milk. So clients are drinking Jah and then it's bloating them, they're getting inflammation and so forth. So like I've suggested switching to oat milk or almond milk or coconut milk. I personally use almond milk to make my Jah, and then instead of sugar, switching on to monk fruit. That's completely natural and it's not bad for you. It's actually antioxidant or something as well. It's fairly sweet, so just using that, and I've gotten myself off of sugar, and my mom doesn't use sugar anymore either.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I love
question.
that. That's a huge point. The milk.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's huge.
What were you saying about monk fruit? That is a fruit you can get for Jah, or just
It's sugar. It's monk fruit sugar. It's called monk fruit sugar. It's
Okay.
basically a replacement for sugar. It has a Japanese name, like lungs, like it's called something. But it's one of the suggestions that they have for like organic, natural sweeteners that aren't like aspartame based or sucralose or anything like that. Because a lot of the times the sweeteners are actually worse than the actual sugar, like aspartame and all that sort of stuff. So you want to find like an organic replacement.
How about
Maple
brown
syrup,
sugar?
honey.
Is stevia?
Stevia is fine.
Sorry, I was just gonna say stevia.
Stevia is
That's fine?
fine. And then some
Because I know a lot of people.
like to the brown sugar, like just using small amounts of that. However, like eventually just getting, in my opinion, this is my opinion, but like eventually just getting off the sugar entirely is usually a good idea. Because now when I have a pear and an apple, it tastes really freaking sweet. Like that's my sugar for the day. So if you can reduce that, like, because our palates, they adapt to that, right? If we're having the sugar all the time with the Jah, then we always need sweets. If you can start to reduce it, things like fruits that should be sweet enough, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point about just trying to eliminate it, because at the end of the day, sugar is sugar. You might think that you're putting honey into your Jah or whatever. At the end of the day, it's going to break down into sugar. It's very sweet, and it's no different. It may be, it may have certain micronutrients in it that sugar itself doesn't have, but at the end of the day, it's sugar. Brown sugar is sugar, right? So don't forget that. So, loading on the brown sugar and you're like, oh, this is so healthy. Oh my gosh. Like, no, it's not. Okay. Just eliminate it as much as possible. Anything that tastes sweet is very likely sugar. Okay.
Like don't replace your 3 spoons of white sugar with like 4 spoons of like brown sugar.
And remember,
like don't, but this is healthier.
Yeah, and everything that everyone is saying is just to remind everyone, it's coming from the context of, we are all predisposed for diabetes and high blood pressure, right? So having that in mind for even us now and changing your lifestyle now won't make us a statistic in 20 years, right? Like that's always what I try to get my frame of mind, because literally everybody in my family has diabetes and high blood pressure. everyone, mom's side, dad's side, everyone.
So what would you say a good alternative is? I think, like, for example, I think all our parents have jaw and they have to have like a cookie or something with it. So why don't we give people listening in, what's a good alternative? What can we suggest?
That's like a habit that has they've built in, right? Like it's almost become like a part of our culture because we all say it, like you have jaw. If I ever have jaw, I gotta have a cookie, like to tell you the truth. And it's just a habit that we've conditioned our brains into thinking. So it's really just kind of breaking that habit. So I know it's still has a little bit of sugar, but I make like natural date bars, and it's the easiest thing where I mix dates and like pecans and almonds together, and then put them in the fridge. Whenever I need one, I can take one out and eat that, and that is so filling too. And it's kind of funny because it comes from like Punjabi culture too, where like I know my parents, like when my sister gave birth, they made like pinya, I think that's what it's called, right, where they crush up nuts, because that like fuels your body and is actually really good for your body. So it helps you heal after you've given birth. So those kind of things are, it's weird because it's kind of full circle, because it's come back, and I'm like, oh, where we used to dismiss our parents' ideas, like, oh, you're crazy, and now you're like, no, and that makes sense.
Are really good for you, but they're loaded with sugar.
Yeah.
I tell my mom to make them without sugar.
Yeah.
My mom makes them without sugar too. Yeah.
And
I
you don't have to give it up completely. Like you just work at kind of like bringing it down slowly. Like I used to drink triple coffees, and then it went to like 3 milk, 2 sugar, and then it was like double, and then it was regular, and then it was just black coffee. Now I'm addicted to black coffee, right? But it's something that you don't have to do right away. Kind of chip away, small steps, baby steps, right?
Yeah, change your palate for sure. Those salty food, sugary food is highly palatable, right? And that's why we love it so much. And so it's just a matter of, as you, Amar, like as you said, okay, so what's the alternative? Well, there is no alternative really. You have to just stop, you know, and you can kind of ease yourself into it. I think that's a very good strategy. Reduce the amount of sugar that you're consuming. Like Dilpreet said, put in, 1 spoon versus 3, it's going to be those incremental changes that's going to make a difference. But at the end of the day, guys, because it is so difficult for people to make these changes in your practice as trainers and coaches, what have you found to be successful strategies in getting people to, adhere to healthier food choices?
I think I just wanted to touch base quickly on like the jaw thing. Same thing with my parents, before they would use the sugar and the milk and everything and the jaw, and whoever's listening right now, I want you to know that it is possible to change. So my parents used to use the sugar, and then use the milk, and then they started cutting it down. Then they weren't using any sugar, and then they started realizing that the lactose was bothering them and that the milk was bothering them, and they were just so tired of feeling the bloat and just feeling so gross. And now they've switched so much where they're having the green tea or the herbal tea, and then they've switched into trying out the almond milk or trying the oat milk, and they put a little splash with the tea bag, and then they don't use any sugar. So again, we keep saying is make the small changes, keep working at it, and it is possible because your palate's going to change as well as you keep doing it. I think that's probably one of the biggest tips to give clients when they first start off is making small changes with their nutrition, and maybe getting them to reflect on how they feel after they eat. So let's say they're eating certain foods right now. You eat 5 roti at lunchtime. Are you feeling sleepy, after that? So I think just monitoring how you feel after you eat, are you wanting to go sit on the couch, lay on the couch and go to sleep and snore away? Or do you feel energetic after your meal? And then writing it down in your phone or your notes, if you start to feel bloated or if you feel gross, or if you're just wow, I feel so good and energetic today, write down what you ate, because if you have a food diary, like I've done that for myself too. That's how I figured out dairy was bothering me, wheat was bothering me, gluten was bothering me. I just kept writing stuff down. I'm like, why do I feel weird? Like, why do I feel gross? And I think that's been so successful with many clients, is they start writing down what they're eating and then they reflect, how do I feel after eating?
Exactly.
It's a great strategy.
Yeah, the journal. Sorry, I was just going to build off that. So the concept of journaling, I think, is one of the most effective strategies. And I do recommend writing it versus typing it out on your phone. And another thing is, like, when you're journaling your food or making your food log, you don't have to get crazy specific, like in terms of calories and this and that. I know a lot of people get intimidated and overwhelmed by that, but just write down, like, breakfast, this is what I ate, this is how I felt, lunch, dinner, boom. And then over time, you should notice your food choices change. That's one of the coolest part. Maybe day one is like, okay, I had donuts, felt like crap. And then I had more donuts, felt like crap. And then by the end of it, you're eating nutrient-dense meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And it's one of those things to feel proud of, you know? And when you write it down, it becomes very real. And it's one of those things you can reflect on and be proud of yourself with. So write it down, track it. And then the other thing for me and all my clients is, I'm always preaching that for them to just remain curious and also just remain conscious. So a lot of us live busy lives, and when we're eating, it's like, that's one of my pet peeves. Okay, we're eating and I'm at a dinner table with people, everybody's on their device and just scorfing away, not thinking, not breathing, not doing nothing. They're just eating and then boom, they're gone. That's my relationship with my brothers. So basically, basically just slow down. Like, take one bite, chew your food, talk, like, stare at a wall, chew your food. Like, just slow down when you're eating is my biggest tip.
That's super.
In the beginning, in the beginning, I find clients don't really have that awareness, like building the awareness, even with myself. Like, it's hard, like how Dilpreet said, like you started cutting things out and then you start to realize, hey, this was bothering you and so forth. That awareness piece, I find, because everybody's so overstimulated with screens and life and everything going on, that when we do eat, we never connect, like, hey, I feel bad because I had that besan, or like, I wonder what was in there. So talking it out with the clients, I find, always helps. And it kind of brings it to their awareness. And then they'll kind of have moments where they'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, I didn't have this and now I felt like this. And just kind of fit, like, talking it out verbally and making them aware of it and really making it a big point, and to kind of drive home that, hey, this is what it is that you need to be doing, really helps.
And honestly, nutrition is a very, it can be very complicated and overwhelming, right? There's a lot of information out there, misinformation. Oh, for example, the fads and the teas. It's like, what do I do? You know, and that's where coaches are come in, right? And having a good coach, someone who's gone through the research, who's gone through the process, who has experienced these things, can be a guiding light for you, right? There is a lot of information out there. The internet is like infinite. But you know, having someone in your corner that you trust can really streamline the process. And like Avi said, you don't have to track your food, but it can help. I mean, I track my food simply because I find that it helps me keep myself accountable, right? And if you're that type of personality and you like tracking things and you're very meticulous and you like, you know, keeping lists and things, it can work for you. You just have to know who you are and what your personality type is and what works for you, right? I have a really good question in the Q&A in regards to nutrition, and I think it'll help segue us into the next portion of this nutrition section, and that's supplementation. So the question is, what are your thoughts on supplements for seniors, specifically those with a heart condition, protein powders or nutritional powders, etc.? So I don't know if anyone wants to take this question on, and then we can.
Right when you hear heart condition and so forth, or if I ever see that in my practice, the immediate thing is to talk to your doctor. So we don't know what sorts of medication you could be on for the heart issue, but speak to the doctor about any sort of supplementation on top of that. However, I think it was something about protein. So instead of putting that individual on like a protein powder, I think maybe just increasing the protein intake through the diet might be a good idea. And you can just do that through even a vegetarian diet. Let's just presume that this individual is vegetarian. Maybe increase, like let's say if they're having rajma and jal or rajma and roti, you would increase the amount of rajma that you're giving them and slowly make incremental increases throughout the day. And I think that increase in protein should be a bit better than putting them on protein shakes, so to speak. Because then there's a chance that you might find a brand that has filler or something in there that they're sensitive to, or it could react with something else that they're having. But the first step is always talking to your doctor.
I agree.
I agree, because my dad had a heart attack more than like a year ago, and same thing. When he was asking, I told him, I said, listen, like, you know, as we like research and like read up on this, like with any types of like health conditions, always talk to your doctor, because like Jas mentioned, like you never know with medication how the medication can interact with a specific supplement. Even though you think the supplement, it's clean, you know, there's no like fillers, it's good. Always talk to the doctor, and you can always show them the label as well of the ingredients in that supplement.
Yeah, and if you are a senior with a heart condition, I think that going to a nutritionist is super important, because diet is going to be key, right? Diet is going to be essential, and that's, so you have whole foods here, which is like vegetables, fruits, whole foods, real foods, things that come out of the ground. And then you have supplements over here. Okay, these are man-made and these are made by nature, right? We want to make sure that we get most of our nutrition from whole foods. Okay, and if you eat meat, you want to make sure that your meat is sourced from a good farm. You know, it's antibiotic free, whatever, organic, whatever it may be, right? And then supplementation is simply that, is supplementation. It's to fill in the gaps where maybe, your diet wasn't so great, wasn't perfect 100%, and you want to add and make sure that, your performance is 100%. We want to be superhumans, so we're going to supplement. And protein powders can be a great supplement, especially because many of us are vegetarians, right? A lot of Sikhs are vegetarians, a lot of South Asians are vegetarians. So protein powders can be a great way to get in that added protein, because protein is very important, because that's what's going to keep you satiated. And what that means is when you're eating, if you're eating a high carbohydrate meal, you're much more, and especially if it's refined carbohydrates, you're going to find that, an hour, 2 hours later, you're starving again. You want more food. Protein is what's going to keep you satiated. It's what's going to keep those hunger cues down, and what's going to help you feel more full. And that's key to, lowering our body fat, because we're going to make sure that we're in a caloric deficit or maintaining calories by not eating more than we need. More than our bodies need. So that's important to remember, that protein can be a great supplement, especially if you're an athlete, someone who's training and you're a vegetarian. There are recommendations out there based on your body weight, how much protein you should be taking. And it's anywhere from 0.8 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. It's something to keep in the back of your mind, because as a vegetarian, you may be under consuming protein. So I like vegan proteins a lot. I have a couple of brands that I really like, that I know that they're clean. I know that they don't have fillers. And so again, it comes back to research. You got to do your research, right? Or consult with somebody who knows what they're doing, someone who's already been through the process.
And like reading the label, I think that's a huge thing when it comes to nutrition, is starting to learn how to read the label, look at the ingredient list and see what's in there. If half of the stuff you can't even pronounce and you have no clue what this is, it's probably not going to be a good thing. But just read, because if it starts to say like artificial color, red color, yellow color, you want to avoid those things. The goal is, like, as Gursharon mentioned, if it's a vegan protein, right? Like, let's say you're going for pea protein, like you're reading it and it literally says pea, like pea blend. Like, you don't want it to say, it's like artificial flavoring, artificial colors, yellow this, red that. just make sure you read the nutrition labels. And once you start grocery shopping and you start reading, because for example, like peanut butter, right? If you're not going for natural peanut butter, just regular peanut butter, when I looked some years ago, I was like, why is there icing sugar in the ingredient list for peanut butter? It should just be peanuts. But then it has all these other things. So then you just start to become so aware of what you're putting into your body, because peanut butter shouldn't have icing sugar. It should just be peanuts, right?
And don't be fooled by like the packaging too, because sometimes it will say, oh, natural or 100%, whatever it is, but then you read the label and then there's corn syrup or natural flavors, or they add sugar in there when you don't need it.
Or if it says fat free, all of a sudden you see that the sugar and the salt are skyrocketed.
Nutrition labels are key, and learning how to read them is very important too. So
and it goes back to basically the advice we've been saying since the start, is just slow down. I don't know why we're always in a rush to get to certain places. Like when you're grocery shopping, slow down. Maybe go in with a plan, with a game plan. You're gonna find XYZ and then find the best version of XYZ, right? Like you don't have to be in a rush. And I just wanted to clarify something on that question. There was a part there where the individual wrote about the protein and muscle loss. Given that it's a senior that you guys were talking about, or whoever asked the question, I'd recommend, the doctor for sure. But what are your guys' thoughts on protein intake and muscle loss, and how much protein you're supposed to have? I know some people most likely have questions about that.
Sharon mentioned the 0.82.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly scientifically valid number. I mean, there's a lot of scientific studies that have been done, and that is a fairly, there's a consensus on that if you are active to any degree, that you should be getting 0.8 to 1.5 grams of protein daily. And that number will fluctuate based on your activity level. And just speaking from personal experience, there's a question from Anoop Gill saying, what are your feelings about sustainability in a vegetarian diet in Sikhism? I have been predominantly a vegetarian my whole life. And I can speak from experience that when I was not supplementing with a protein shake, that my recovery was abysmal. Like, I don't know, I guess I was young and you can kind of soldier through things when you're younger. But as I got older, not supplementing with protein, I felt it the next day. I was fatigued, my muscles hurt. As soon as I started supplementing with a protein shake and getting adequate protein, my recovery, I felt so much better. And I actually started making gains. As a vegetarian, it can be difficult to put on muscle if you're not getting adequate protein. And so in my view, I think it is one of the things that, out of everything in terms of tracking, I think you should pay attention to how much protein you're taking in on a daily basis, and just get a general idea, track it for like a week or so, and then you'll understand, okay, if I eat this today, then I'll hit my protein targets, but if I don't eat it, then I'm going to be below. And then also it depends on how much activity you did that day, right? If you had a hard training session, maybe that's the day you're going to supplement with a shake. And then the other days, you're just going to try to meet your protein goals with whole foods, right?
One thing I wanted to really add about the protein part is protein is the building blocks of life. Like protein is, having enough is so essential for your health, for not just like the muscle and like strength and like recovery, which is so important, but like your blood cells, right? Like your brain, like ligaments, like literally functioning, your digestive system, like literally everything in your body relies on protein. So it's so important. And especially as we get older, we talked about this before too. And that question that came up, like the fear of like losing like muscle, like if you're, a vegetarian, or if you have heart disease, like what do you do with protein? Just do your best to get that protein. And Gursharon mentioned like supplementing that in is going to help a lot if you're vegan or vegetarian. And just remember, protein isn't going to give you those like jacked muscles. It's way more than that. It's literally the building blocks of life to be healthy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like literally every structure in your body, your hair, your skin, everything, organs, muscles, everything is made out of protein. So you can only imagine if you're getting zero protein, what is your body going to build from? What is your, our cells die off. What are those cells going to be replaced with? you won't have anything in your body to rebuild. And it's also important to remember, especially in the context of a vegetarian diet, that you need all of the essential amino acids. So amino acids are the different building blocks, and they're the, you know, that make up the structures in your body. And if you don't have all of the amino acids and you're deficient in some of them, the processes that your cells engage in to create new cells and new structures in your body will be hindered. So meat, animal sources are the only sources where you have a full amino acid profile. And it's much harder to get a full amino acid profile from a vegetarian diet. And that's where supplementation comes in and is important in my view.
G, just in case someone is confused, it was 0.8 to 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. So we would just go like 0.8 times, let's say if I'm 80 kilograms, so 0.8 times 80, so that would be what, 64 grams of protein for that individual. So I guess that's how individuals would do the math, right? Just in case someone's confused.
Yeah.
So 0.8, so sorry, you said 0.8 to 1.5 per kilogram body weight. And that's important, because when you do that math with your weight, you might be kind of shocked. Like, oh, I only need this much. A lot of times there's people who are just chugging these shakes and just like overdoing it. And you'll know if you're overdoing it, your stomach won't be happy with you.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's also overdoing it too. So not saying, only eat protein and that's it. It's really important to put those fruits and vegetables in there. And also a big thing that the first thing that I'll ask in my consultation with my clients is like, how much water are you drinking? Because water is neglected and very, very important. And especially because we're at home so much too. It's so easy to just walk into the kitchen and grab some food, but more often than not, you're probably dehydrated. So I highly recommend, drinking a full glass of water first before you think that you're hungry. And then if you're still hungry, you can have that snack or lunch or whatever. But water, you should have at least 3 liters of water a day. 2 is the actual water intake itself. And then you should be getting about 1 liter of water from fruits and vegetables and the food that you're actually taking in. So water. That's a big one that I feel like is neglected and so good for, there you go. I think we all have our waters here, right? So always carry a bottle with you. I know for me personally, I absolutely hated water. I didn't like pop or anything. So if I was having any liquid intake, it was usually coffee. And now like I just found like a bottle that I really, really like and I enjoy drinking out of. It tracks the amount of water that I'm drinking. So that's almost like an achievement and a goal for myself within a day. If I get through that bottle, then I feel great about myself and I know how much I'm taking in. So I, got 1 liter in before noon, and then I slowly, gradually drink the rest of the water that I need throughout the day. But it's really important to somehow make water something that you enjoy drinking and doing, because it's a big part.
Because if you're only drinking 1 or 2 cups a day, which we see when we get, new clients, we work with them, and you see, like, literally our eyeballs are like 1 cup, like, holy smokes, like, that's not enough.
For that, it's an achievement.
Yeah, 1 cup. But I think, I love Amar that you said that, we sometimes think that we're hungry, but instead you're just dehydrated, and also energy. So a lot of people lack energy because they're just not getting water. And once you start getting, like sciencey and biological, like water is one of those components that helps break down energy. So if your body doesn't have water, you're not getting that hydration. How are you supposed to produce that energy day to day? Not just for like the gym, but also like having that mental clarity when you're at work and you're not falling asleep and you think you need coffee, but you don't need coffee. Your body's just like, give me water right now.
Yeah. And it will affect your workouts too, because you'll have like migraines, or you'll be like, you'll feel weak, right? You're dehydrated. So you want to make sure that you're drinking not like 10 minutes before your workout, you're drinking throughout the day.
Definitely. on the point of supplements, how do you guys feel about supplements? Are there any supplements that you take personally that you would recommend to vegetarians or non-vegetarians?
I take an omega-3 with vitamin D fish oil. So I take that, and I think that I generally would recommend that to vegetarians as well, because sometimes there's not enough vitamin D or omegas. And I don't know, some vegetarians do tend to like eat fish, but they still identify as vegetarian. Some people don't. So I think the omega profiles are very important, and so that supplementation. And every now and again, I do go on probiotics, but that's a whole different.
Yeah,
I
I would say
I'd say those two in the iron too. I noticed with the iron, like I eat a lot of meat, and I was still, when I got tested, I was like deficient. So and that's really common with South Asian women too. So take that pill, because I notice it in my energy levels too.
Yeah.
And B12. I think B12 is so important, especially as like vegetarian. B12 is very important, and as Jas said, vitamin D is like such a holy grail supplement for you, for your energy. You know, she's got her vitamin D for you know, your energy, your digestive system, and your mood, right? Like that's so important, and your immune system. So for sure. And probiotics, like I personally love probiotics. I've found that for myself, it's been a huge game changer. You have to get the right one. You can't just buy like a cheap one off like the shelf, like the refrigerated live bacteria. And you know, you start taking that every single day, like whether it's first thing before, you know, you eat, or it's at like nighttime before dinner, you go to sleep. You have to be consistent with anything, you know, in life. You have to be consistent, and after like those 20 days or so, you'll start to notice a huge difference with your digestion. Like you'll feel less bloated, your body's just doing a better job at, you know, absorbing and breaking down food, and also like our gut health, like, which is a huge topic. Sorry.
Skin starts glowing after the probiotics as well.
Yeah. And who doesn't want glowy skin? But your gut health is like, your gut is your second brain. So that's why it's important, as we mentioned, and Avi said, you know, journaling everything down. How does your digestion feel? But vitamin D and, you know, probiotic and B12, I would say get those in.
Those are definitely good recommendations. I think everyone in this group is on that same course, the same course of vitamins and supplements. The vitamin D, super important, guys, especially in the era of COVID. Let's make sure that we're getting adequate vitamin D, okay? Because that is integral to your immune system, okay? In terms of dosages and stuff, I would consult with your doctor, just because it is a fat soluble vitamin. So it's important that you don't take excess amounts. So don't like chug down a bottle of vitamin D drops, because they're very concentrated. So just be careful, okay? So again, with any of these supplements, do your research, consult with a professional. You know, you don't want any accidents or mishaps, okay? So next, moving on now. So that's the nutrition aspect. There isn't the Q&A beneath Shoker. We have not missed your Q&A. I'm leaving it till the end, so please hang on. We're going to move on to, we only have a little bit of time left, so I just want to touch on this for about 10 minutes or so. The mental health aspect of it, right? Because we've been talking about mind, body, and spirit, and they're all interconnected. So a strong mind requires a strong body requires a strong mind, right? So let's get into the mental health aspect of it, because this is an important conversation to have in our community, because it can be a taboo subject. Okay, so we're going to start off with the definition of mental health. So I'm going to hand it over to, who's taking over this part? I forget.
Simran.
Simran? Okay, thanks, Simran.
So just like a generic definition that's right from the World Health Organization, states that mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the day-to-day stresses in life, can work productively, and is able to contribute to his or her own community. Essentially, mental health is the foundation for individual well-being and the effective functioning of a community. Now, tying this back to Sikhism, I think Sikhism really reiterates the idea of having a strong mind. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of Sikhism, stated, "Man jeete jag jeet," which means we conquer our mind, we conquer the world. Gurbani in itself is an abstract, right? I myself, at least, I don't understand a lot of it, but whatever I can take from my understanding, and even people that are more religious and have been studying the Gurbani over time, it continues to be abstract. So it's a constant, you're consistently learning how to implement the teachings of Gurbani in your life. So with that being said, we can take what we understand in relation to our lives, and we can try to implement the teachings of Gurbani in our day-to-day lives. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji, through that saying, "Man jeete jag jeet," he's reiterating that our mental strength is a constant goal that we're all working on, regardless of where we're at in life. And having a strong mind is what allows us to be the best versions of ourselves in the world, right? We mentioned in the very beginning and throughout this conversation that our mental health and our physical health, they're all connected, right? One is kind of non-existent without the other. They go hand in hand. And with that being said, there's so many teachings in our Gurbani that teach us how to increase our mental strength. Being mentally strong is what allows us to do a couple of things. I would say two of the main things would be to remain focused and to be resilient. When I say we're remaining focused, that means we're able to work towards our goals, whether that's a day-to-day goal or a lifetime goal, whether that's being able to get out of bed. If you're happy that day, sad that day, you're just feeling cloudy, right? That's a small goal. That's your ability to focus. And that would be directly related to your mental health, right? And then the second component of that is being resilient. In all of our lives, even if we're the happiest people in the world, we're all going to face obstacles, right? And with that being said, being resilient is what allows us to continue to motivate ourselves, continue to get up and keep on going, right? With that being said, we're going to try to find, as we grow older, and I think all of us can speak on this, we've learned as we've aged, at least myself, my own coping strategies, right? What works for us? What decreases our anxiety? What gets us going, right? And it's funny because we talk about all this stuff, and through what we're learning in the society, given what's happening with the farmers' protests, COVID, a lot of stuff is happening around this time. Mental health is at its high right now, and I'm glad that we're all able to speak on it and bring some attention to it. And it's through Sikhism, right? Our own religion is actually giving us some guidance or some pointers as to how increase our mental strength. Just common things that we're all familiar with would be like the music or the hymns, so kirtan, right? Even studies show, regardless of your religion, regardless of your background, classical music, which is often in the form of kirtan, has shown to help with concentration, with focus. Studies have shown that pregnant women, their babies actually come out with better attention, with better focus. So there's something there that studies have shown that kirtan, music, it has a way of increasing your mental strength, okay? Another thing that we look at in our religion is meditation. We call it Simran. In that form of doing Simran, we're able to be mindful. We're able to connect our mind, body, and spirit in that moment, regardless of how long it is. I think anybody that's tried to meditate, has said that it's one of the hardest things to do. I myself, I find it very challenging to sit there and meditate, but the ability to do that is one of the best things you can do for your mind, right? It's absolute control of your mind, because that's the ability to actually get rid of all your distractors and just be at one with yourself. And then Sikhism also has the different thoughts throughout the day. So I believe it's the Panj Barniya. So essentially, if we think about it from, if I'm relating that directly to my experience as a mental health therapist, one of the main concepts in working with people with depression used to be to kind of incorporate routine, discipline in your day-to-day, right? Just looking at our religion alone, having to do those Panj Barniya, doing Japji Sahib in the morning, which is one of the first prayers you do. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But it's one of the first prayers that you do. And it allows us to have that discipline, that routine in our day, that regardless of if you're feeling sad, mad, angry, get up and do it. That directly relates to one of the main concepts in one of the approaches you work with people with depression, which is your behavior or your actions, whatever you engage yourself in, whether it's activity, meditation, whoever you're engaging with socially, that's directly going to affect your mood, right? And your mood directly affects your thoughts. It's a circle. And it all starts with us having that ability to get up.
Thanks, Simran, for that. I think Indi has something to add as well on the mental health aspect.
Sorry for jumping in late. My name's Indi or Inder, and I'm a yoga teacher, breathwork coach, and doula support. And I do try to focus within our Sikh community and helping within our Sangha. And honestly, Simran, thank you so much for just leading with the definition of mental health and giving all that information, because you took it right out of my mouth. So I completely agree with everything you just said and the correlation that it has with Sikhism. And I think, I guess just to add is like, I think we have to, as a community, really dismantle the taboo that meditation is not for someone who's Sikh. I think that's like something that's like, we think, oh, it's just praying, but you know, shifting our perspective into, it's actually like a meditation. It's actually something to increase your own self-awareness and your own confidence and your own overall mental and physical projection in this world, right? And I think that first and foremost is really important, because just like Simran said, you can see in Gurbani that there is so many references to meditation within the 5 banis, which are, there's actually 7. So there's like evening one that you can do as well. And I just bring those up because they're also meant to be done at a certain time throughout your day. So if you kind of think about that, it's like breaking your day up and kind of resetting your mental projection and your physical body. So, you know, you can do that through a walk. You can go on your lunch break and take a walk, or you can just sit down beside a tree and hug it, or breathe in 3 deep breaths. But we're just showing you the correlation with Sikhi and meditation as well. So, and then I want to just touch on the word Sikhism or Sikh. It's, I believe it's to be a lifelong learner and to be curious of the world and to be curious of yourself. So I think that's like an important concept as Sikhs to always remember, because, you know, when you're always curious about learning things for yourself, that's when you can self-initiate and actually make steps to improving your life. Because I'm sorry, at the end of the day, it's only yourself that can take those steps forward, right? So we need to get past those limiting beliefs we have within our own being from whatever past experiences you have in life, to make that first step to keep that momentum going, right? So I think we need to like take a step back there and just sit down and get rid of all those distractions. And the way we do that is through meditation. And you can do it through Bani as well if you like. And then use your Sangha as support, like this talk, to reach out to learn new resources and learn new ways to be able to keep this energy up. And one other thing, like Chaddi Kalal is like the spirit of, you know, uplifting and like that warrior spirit. So again, like it's not just about our physical body and worrying about, you know, if we can get to A and B, but it's also about our mental body and our mental strength, and really having those two balance one another to live in that Chaddi Kalar spirit. And I think that's kind of, because honestly, Simran, you said it so well. I'm not very good at speaking in public. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity in general.
I think you said it great. I think you said it absolutely great. Resonated with me very well.
Great. And I guess, yeah, just that is, I think it's so beautiful that we have these 5-7 pots, because like
We didn't even realize that that's just creating discipline within ourselves if we can commit to that. It's not, to me, I don't think it's being religious. I think it's actually being spiritual and connecting to your divinity within yourself, which is that Vaheguru and that ik. And lastly, I guess, to help develop that discipline, another concept I think Sikhism has is Amrit Vela. And that concept is to wake up in the morning around like 3 to 6 a.m. because the energy of, the earth is different at that time. And also you're able to get more into that meditative zone. And I think if you can wake up that early, go for it. Do it every day, but like, sometimes it's hard to wake up like 5 a.m. before you had to like travel to work and da-da-da. I actually think it's beautiful that we're all on the computer now, because maybe now you actually have the time to wake up 5 minutes earlier and meditate before you hop on the computer and do your work, right? So that's one thing that I just wanted to touch on. And the fact that, though, don't get stuck on that it's only at 3 to 6 o'clock, because I think Amrit Villa, or in my experience, I feel like it's more about finding that zone and that flow for yourself. And whatever that flow is, trying to be able to find it any time of your day. So it doesn't have to be just in the morning, and being able to transfer that into other parts of your day. And then just to wrap it all up, to bring some science into it, I guess, because I do have that part of me, and that's why I love this group. And it takes 40 days to break a habit. So we're all creatures of habit. It's just what we are. We're human beings, right? We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So if we're all creatures of habit, why not create good habits rather than bad habits? And so I think through meditation and being physically active, I think with that awareness, that helps us stay in that Jardika law, so that we can always be reaching for those good habits and not reaching for those bad habits in challenging times. And then lastly, like with that 40 days of breaking a habit, like if you can commit to a meditation for 40 days, I promise you at the end of that 40 days, you'll see not only shifts within your mental thinking, but within your physical life and surroundings. And then 3 minutes of meditation affects blood circulation in your electromagnetic field of your body. 7 minutes affects your brain patterns, and it starts to shift you from that static beta waves to a calmer alpha wave. So 11 minutes stimulates and balances your glandular and nervous system. And then 22 minutes helps reduce anxiety and thoughts from your subconscious. And 31 minutes of deep meditation affects all your cells and clears your subconscious. And as human beings, when we have one blink of an eye, we have 1,000 thoughts. So those 1,000 thoughts go into our subconscious, and they're not always good, right? Usually they're limiting. So I really love that quote, because that's like a really good motivator for me to like get on my mat and to meditate, because throughout the day you have all those thoughts and it keeps building up. Just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. So just like we wash our bodies, we have to wash our minds. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Indi. That was very insightful and a great place to end off. So I know there's one more question, and before we get there, just a little send off. The question is, any tips on how to promote or encourage our community to invest financially into their health? And from my perspective, and I'll get the perspective of the other members from this panel as well, the only way to encourage our community to invest financially into the health of our people, into the health of our youth, into the health of our elderly population, is to create a demand for it. Right? Our community is great at fundraisers. Our community is great at collecting money, and we do really, really good things. We come together collectively when there is a need, and there's no doubt about that. But we're also divided on a lot of issues too. And I think it's going to take, leadership, and it's going to take groups like this, and it's going to take a buy-in from the rest of the community to create that demand and to encourage the community to invest financially into our health. Because like I said, we're good at, we take out our pocketbooks and our checkbooks quite easily. We're very, very giving people, but the thing is, are we investing in the right things? And I don't think that we are, and I don't want to get too political here, in terms of, some of our institutions and where the money goes. But at the end of the day, we have to demand better of ourselves, and we have to demand better of the people who are in leadership positions. And we have to take leadership positions ourselves. Our youth have to take leadership positions, and we got to create the demand. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to Sangat, right? This community that we have right now, Strength and Seva, this is our Sangat. We've created a space for ourselves where we can promote this message, where we're creating a demand, and we have, look at all the leaders that we have on this panel here today. And, it's through initiatives like that, and from, the panelists, the participants in the panel today promoting initiatives like this, that we're going to make a change. We sit on our Instagram feeds all day, swiping TikTok. I don't know, I'm not on TikTok, but I am on Instagram, and I'm a little bit addicted, I won't lie. Okay. So every day you're just swiping down or up, however your iPhone's set up. Okay. And it's addictive. Oh my gosh, the stuff that's on there. And we buy into these ads for clothes and like other stupid things, and we're investing all of our time and energy into these other causes that don't serve us and don't serve our community. Go follow the Strength and Seva page. Go follow those individuals who are trying to create a change. Support your own community. Support the people in your community that are trying to make a change, okay? It's easy to follow influencers and TikTok people, whoever they are, because it's entertaining. It's much harder to support the people who are putting out good information out there and trying to help people and change people's lives. It's much harder to do that. So you got to support the people who are trying to make that change. And, you got to become a leader yourself, set an example. And I think that, we're trying.
I just wanted to speak to that point about the investing. That's a very, very common question, and it comes up a lot. And one thing that I found as a professional in this industry for 10 years is once we can develop the awareness of our collective consciousness and get our bujurgs and individuals to see the ramifications and the consequences of a lot of these decisions and the lack of investing and what it results in, then they start to really, their eyes open up. Like what I noticed with a lot of the individuals in Surrey is they're numbers people. They'll be like, oh, main inne di lot layi, main inne da ghar banaya, main, I did this, I did that. And the numbers are going, right? So then I do the exact same to them. I says, oh, inne loki mare heart attack, to inna hoya, start doing statistics. And then they start to think, oh, wow, like it's really that big of an issue. Because you always feel like it's not going to happen to you. It might happen to that person, but not to you. But then when the awareness grows, they're like, wait a minute, that's actually true. That could be me. And just to speak back and wrap everything up to the name, the daily discipline of doing the Satmani. Well, if you can do the Satmani Zapat every day and you're hammering it out, every day after day, chances are you're probably doing that 150 minutes of exercise per week. Chances are you're probably doing the 2 times the strength training. Chances are you're probably eating those meals and drinking the water like everybody talked about. And that's how Sikhi is. We are able to take all those things and now package it up and put it together and now integrate the mind and the body and the spirit and kind of, be optimal like how our gurus wanted us to be.
And I think really like shifting our mindsets to preventative care instead of sick care. I think in our community, they're always waiting for something to happen and get sick. Like that was with my dad. Like I was telling him, I said, hey dad, I care about you. Your stomach is turning more into like an apple shape right now. It's coming over the belt. Like, I think we should cut down a little bit, like on like, your namkeen, all these like products like that you're like consuming. At the time he didn't really take me fully seriously. And then of course, when something happened, that was a shocker and he completely changed everything. And he's like, do my diet, do everything, tell me what to do, I'll do it all. And it's sad to see that. And I think, as leaders, if we really focus on just educating on preventative care, so we don't have to get to that point where they don't have to end up in the hospital, I think that's so important. And letting them know, like, would you rather spend money on the gym, your food, or would you rather spend it like on medications for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Great points, guys. And I think we've hit our 9 p.m. mark right on the dot. I think we could have gone for another 2 hours, but we do have to call it a night. I think we have to go to bed at some point. So,
The
guys.
sun's still shining on me. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, that's right. Keep
Look,
going.
I'm still in the sunshine.
Oh, man.
People start here.
3 hours behind us.
3 hours,
Well,
yeah.
guys, thank you so much. If you guys do have more questions, please go on the Strengthen Seva Instagram page. Join, message us, DM us, and we'll answer all your questions as best we can. Okay, so thank you for joining us, and I'm gonna hand it back over to the Sikh Heritage Month team.
Hi guys, thank you so much. Just to quickly wrap up now, I would like to say thank you so much to all of you guys, all of our panelists for your time today and for this incredible conversation with us all. And thank you to everyone who joined in on today's event. I hope you all had a great time. A quick reminder to visit sikhheritagemonth.ca to register for any upcoming events. And I hope everyone has a great night.
I want to say one last thing if I can.
Yep, of course, of course.
Just so everybody knows, like, Strengthen Seva, it's not like this exclusive member society that only the people on this page can be on. It's very organic, happened naturally, and we encourage, if you guys know people in the health and wellness industry, if they're Punjabi, Sikh, whatever, like, even if they're not, if they want to be a part of this, we're openly accepting more volunteers. And again, we're all volunteers for this, and we're just trying to create resources so our community can wake up. It's going to take more than one person. My frustration came with trying to have these conversations with my family members, and it was just going through one ear out the other. And then I messaged everybody on the screen, and we kind of got together, and here we are. So I think today was amazing, and thank you all very much.
And if any family members join and any parents, they might not listen to you, but if we're talking, they might listen to us, because that's what happens with Punjabi parents. They won't listen to their own kids, but they'll listen to someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Take care.